Okay, we'll go ahead and kick things off. How does that sound, Anya? Ready? Okay, let's do it. So welcome everyone to another monthly installment of EPOC's Employee Experience webinars. Today, super excited to be spotlighting Anya from Miro. So with that said, before we dive right into it, if you all want to look into the chat and open up that board that we've been linking, please feel free to do so. But with that said, to kick things off, I'll first set the intention of why we're gathered here today. So I'm Jade, one of the co-founders of EPOC, and what EPOC is an employee experience platform. Working with incredible companies and teams like Miro to help connect employees globally or locally. So that's enough about us. If you're interested in learning more, you can always find us at www.epocapp.com. But to get started, I'm going to provide us a quick overview of today's agenda, intro Anya, and then hand it off to Anya to introduce herself. So with that said as well, if you all want to warm up the chat and just drop in how you're feeling today as an emoji, feel free to do so. But with that said, today we'll be talking about Anya's thoughts on using human-centric design in approaching employee experience and learning programs. How are we navigating cultural differences and different learning styles, especially in Miro's global context, the shifting priorities during the pandemic, and a lot more fun topics today. So with that said, super excited to be introducing Anya, who leads learning design programs at Miro. And she has over I think 10 years of experience across learning design programs, human-centric design. And now her top of mind topics that she'll be sharing today is around culture, global programs, and connecting employees. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Anya to introduce herself, and then we'll hop into the Miro board.
Thank you, Jade. I'm really excited to be here with you today. It's a very special moment because we are also EPOC customers, which we really love, and EPOC helped us to scale our engagement programs quite a lot. So we've been using it since May, I think, and we see a lot of progress and a lot more cool data because of EPOC. But yeah, I'm Anya. I'm a learning design lead, and I'm based out of Los Angeles, California. I've been with Miro for almost 5 years, wearing many hats. I started with the first people team lead a long time ago when we were about 80 people, I think, globally. And then we've scaled to almost 1,800 today. So it's been a crazy ride. And that's why I guess I wear so many different hats. But my most recent role at Miro is I lead this small team of hub community managers and event coordinators who actually use EPOC to scale their programs. And what we tried to solve in the past 3 years is first to help Mironeers, our Miro employees, we call them Mironeers, help them to feel connected. When the pandemic hit, obviously it was crazy. We didn't know how to navigate this new environment. We started to be all remote, so we couldn't connect naturally and collaborate naturally as we used to. So we started to try different things. And this is where the learning design and human-centered design approach came very handy, because we started to use those approaches to develop different activities, different events, we call them rituals, events that happen often, that they happen on a regular basis, to help people to feel connected, engaged, and of course, retain amazing talent we already had and attract more new people to the company. So yeah, we call it Thriving Hubs and Events team, and mainly use learning design methodologies and community management practices for that. So I'm very much excited about doing this today and sharing a bit more what we have learned, what we have tried, also learn from you guys, because it's just so cool to have some time to pause and reflect and share our practices with each other.
Thank you so much, Anya. That's such an incredible introduction in terms of having a great overview on all things that you think about and care about right now. So with that said, I think a perfect way of introducing what Miro is, just for everyone here as well, is that Miro board that we started. So maybe Anya, you want to introduce and kick us off with intros and showing us that great map that you made. So again, I'll drop it in the chat.
yeah, if you just joined, just follow the link in the Zoom chat, and also I'll share my screen so you can follow me here. So simple thing we're trying to do here, Miro board is basically a digital whiteboard, a collaborative platform that we also use in our events and engagement programs. So here you can see that we can kind of put our pins wherever we are located. If you're located elsewhere in the world, don't be shy, just share where you are. And if you want to drop a comment and just say who are you and where you are and which company you represent, or also feel free to share some fun facts and what you're focused on. It's cool to see we have quite a few people here. Hello, hello.
Most people are in California.
California and
Toronto.
Toronto, nice. Oh, Hawaii soon. So they can also put a pin on Hawaii. So if it's your first time using Miro board, this is what really happens at some of our virtual events. We would invite everyone to join this whiteboard and people would collaborate and share something, or they can be doing something together and co-creating something together. So one thing that I hope that we're going to be talking about today is actually on the second slide here. One of the biggest challenges for us was, how do we navigate these hybrid environments now? Because some people are remote, some people are in the office, some people mix the styles. So this is one of the key questions that I'm trying to hack right now. And maybe you can share like how confident you feel with the hybrid events and work experiences. And I will just bring everyone to me. And if you can join me on this area of the board and just drop a sticky note wherever you feel like. Are you super confident or very much puzzled by this challenge? I think myself, I'm here. Jade, what about you?
Yeah, I was just putting it there too. I was like, honestly, we're still navigating it. I wouldn't say I'm more confident than you are, so I'm going to put myself a bit more behind you on.
Okay, we are humble. Let's move a bit more. More space here. But that's true. This is one thing that I believe so many people face with, and we still don't know how exactly to do the things in a new way. But this things drives innovation as well. So we try different things in person and online and try to have both experiences in one event, in one program, and then we learn from it because nobody knows the answer. It's very new for everyone here. But if you already nailed it, feel free to share, and maybe Jade will invite you for the next webinar so you can share some tips and tricks how to navigate the hybrid world. And yeah, you can continue playing along. If you don't feel like playing with the Miro board, don't worry, use the Zoom chat. And why I decided to showcase this a bit is just because this is how exactly my journey in the employee events started about 2.5 years ago when the pandemic hit, and we were like, "Ooh, now we need to make our online events and online meetings a lot more interactive, a lot more engaging, and also cater to different working styles because some people are not feeling comfortable being, let's say, on camera every single day, every single meeting. How still we can engage them? So even if they're not on camera, if they're not participating in a Zoom chat, maybe they would be open with doing something on a board where they can draw or drop a picture or brainstorm on the sticky notes and so on. So this was one of the elements that we embraced. And it was a nice moment where we realized like so much more in common we have with our customers as well, because they navigate in exactly the same difference at the moment. So let's chat more about it. How do we take it forward, Jade?
Amazing. And then with that said, as we navigate today's conversation with Anya, if you do want to hop back on the Miro board and play around with it yourself, you totally can. But with that said, then we can dive into our conversation. How does that sound, Anya?
Let's do it.
Amazing. Again, super excited to be having our conversation today. And to kick things off, Anya, maybe we can talk about how you got into the space and what excited you about joining Miro.
Yeah, so I already shared a bit how I switched from learning design to the community and events, and this is where I spend most of my time at the moment. Before Miro, I was also part of another tech company, but it was way smaller and just co-located in one office, about 70 people, and I led first the communication and marketing team there, and then I switched over to the people operations and talent development programs. And before that, I spent about 7 years in non-for-profit world, actually, which was very different from tech, but very much similar in terms of level of passion. I would say that people who work in non-for-profits, they're very passionate about what they do. And the same here, what I see that our, let's say, product designers and engineers, they're super passionate about the product that they build. So it was a bit of similarities, but a lot of differences as well. And there was mostly focused on building learning programs and developing leaders across the global organization, which was, I believe at that time, like 60,000 people. So like more than 100 countries. And primarily it was the youth audience. So people from like recent grads and students who want to develop their leadership potential, see the world, participate in exchange programs. So this is where I think I got exposed first time to the global environment. And since then, I always wanted to work in a global team, which Miro happened to be.
Yes, and Miro has been growing so fast, especially during the pandemic. So let's kick things off with understanding how you all navigate like the global context, connecting employees globally. I know you all do a lot of programming about it. So it'd be interesting to hear your observations and cool things that you all have been trying out.
Yes, definitely. To be very honest, we were growing the same kind of the same pace even before the pandemic. It just felt a bit differently maybe because it was still kind of, we were in the offices and it was like, you can see all these people. So when you grow during the pandemic, it's a bit harder. So you need to think about different ways to engage people remotely. But yeah, Miro scaled in my time here in the last 5 years. We scaled like from about 80 people to 1,800, and nature
So crazy.
nature is some things they stopped working just because of scale, not just because of the cultural differences and being spread across time zones and so on. So an event that would work for 100 people definitely doesn't work for multiple hundreds of people. So we tried different scale of events, different scale of engagement programs. But another thing that we've learned is that programs resonate in different way with audiences from Europe and from the States or from Tokyo and from Sydney. So we have very diverse population here at Miro. And our idea is that if you provide enough variety of employee events, then we can actually help them to find something they have in common. Of course, there is a lot of diversity at play, but if people from different countries and different professional backgrounds, if they find joy in a cooking class, let's say, and they can join this cooking class, even a small one, and they can find these similarities and have something in common to start with, then they get better at collaborating in the work environment as well. And we've tried, I don't know, I think all the possible types of events, like ranging from sports events, wellness events, craft workshops, cooking workshops, parties, games. We collaborate closely with another part of the people team around more like content-heavy events, like learning events and onboarding activities and all hands meetings where we usually celebrate wins and provide some news. But yeah, I feel like we have tried almost everything. So yeah, I'm happy to share what exactly do you think we can share today with this group, like what's most interesting.
Yeah, I know we talked a little bit about how you all have a lot of virtual programming. So maybe we'll talk about some programs and events that have went really well and some challenges as well. So yeah, maybe let's kick it off with like, how do you all run your virtual programs and events? I'm sure Miro uses Miro a lot. Like what are some things that like you think went well for you all or like challenges? And then also I know you talked about how like some conversations that you all facilitated that was super engaging for your employee base as well. So yeah, maybe let's start from there.
Yeah, I think the beauty of us kind of, we call it drinking our own champagne. So we kind of using our own product for the events that we run is that we, as I mentioned before, we provide people opportunities to express themselves in different mediums. We have very diverse population in terms of working styles, in terms of learning styles, and some people prefer to chat and they're loud and they want to engage in a conversation and they feel completely comfortable in an environment like we have right now. So like just chatting, expressing their opinions and so on. Some people are more like quiet thinkers. They want to take some time to reflect and kind of digest and then share something async. Some people prefer visual things, like they like to express themselves with pictures, emojis, emoji reactions, draw something, and so on. So one thing that we found worked for us really well in the virtual events is that we would provide this variety of mediums for people to engage with. And even if it's something simple, like an all-hands meeting, where eventually we'll all hear the presentation from the leadership with the slides and so on, still it has at least one moment in the beginning where we invite everyone to engage in some icebreaker. And this icebreaker is organized through Miro board and a Zoom chat simultaneously. And also another thing that worked for us quite well in the beginning of the pandemic, it was a bit less popular in the end of the pandemic, is the breakout rooms. So we actually utilized them quite a lot, and we've learned that giving people a choice whether to join a breakout room or not to join actually drives a lot more engagement. So at first we were like, hey, this is the question, let's discuss this question in the breakouts. We've sent everyone to random breakouts, and we see that quite a few people drop from the call at all because like, they don't feel like they don't feel like talking right now. And then we coupled it with the silent brainstorm. So like, hey, if today you feel like being off camera, sharing in a written format, the same question is here on the Miro board, and you just kind of drop a couple of sticky notes with your ideas on the same topic. Or if you feel like connecting with others and talking today, you can go to the breakout room, so kind of giving people a choice. And then we saw that actually less people dropped from the call and less people were uncomfortable with this setup, and they would stay and they would contribute to the same topic. So in the end, we had the discussion, we had a brainstorm, so we could have combined ideas from both formats for the output of that event. So this was very interesting to observe. Kind of being very empathetic and mindful of learning styles and kind of communication styles helped us to provide better events at the end. And in terms of working with like more traditional types of virtual events, of course, we tried, I guess, like all the possible Airbnb experiences, like virtual cocktail show, like shipping ingredients to people's homes, and they join virtually, but they cook something together or they prepare cocktails together. We did a bunch of different games where people compete in teams, solve the murder mystery, or like some fun activity like a quiz, a trivia, and so on. And we did the speed networking, more like speed dating type of a thing, where people kind of get reshuffled in random groups every 5 minutes, and they have questions to discuss. So they were pretty popular. We even had a board game that was actually a super fun one. And there is this company called Cozy Juicy Real, and they reached out to us. They wanted to adopt a board game for a Miro board. And it's a card game. So like the cards with the questions, and they kind of the area where like you move your game pieces around the path and kind of compete to win the highest scores. And yeah, they reached out. It was really successful collaboration. In the end, we've built a special version of that game just for our Mironeers, which is around Miro values. So the questions are connected with our values. And now it's a part of the onboarding program, because when new people join, they don't want to listen only about our culture and values. They actually want to discuss it and experience it. So it became kind of a virtual tradition, virtual ritual that we have now for the newcomers.
That's awesome. And I guess like with that, Anya, in terms of like closing off the virtual programming and then move into like return to office and in person, because I know that's a hot topic right now too. Is I guess like what are some trends you're seeing or what is most popular now with Miro after trying out so many different virtual events to your point, like from Airbnb experiences to more facilitations?
It's hard to say if there is like one particular thing that resonates with every single person and every single audience we work with. We definitely have seen the trend going downwards in terms of engagement. So like less people engage in virtual experiences now than 2 years ago because people just got tired from the screen time and it's natural. So whenever we offer screen time, it should be something very meaningful or surprising or interesting. So it should be something that doesn't sound like a usual Zoom meeting. And people would invest this time, or it should be something very content heavy. And this is where the learning strategy would be a good thing to consult, because if there's something that you can enrich with some new skills and new knowledge or peer sharing, or one of the popular things we run virtually still, or like it's like a hybrid thing right now, but just people from one office can join in person, is a Q&A with our founder. So again, for the newcomers and whoever wants to join too, like he would usually run this open Q&A session, and whoever is in the office with him, they can join in person, but everyone else, of course, they can't fly from all over the world. We have 12 offices right now across the globe, so they join remotely. And of course they join because they know it's one in a lifetime opportunity for them to kind of help them on board. And usually these sessions are happening once a month or once a quarter. So if there's something unique, of course, people would join the remote experience. But if there's something that doesn't have added value, doesn't have this element of surprise and something new, then people either opt out right away, or they join, they listen to first 10 minutes and like, oh, okay, nothing special here. I can focus on something else in parallel with this event. So engagement drops.
Yeah, totally hear that, Anya. And I guess like with that, to your point with like virtual experiences and the engagement kind of changing and shifting, I know we mentioned and we talked about return to office, and there's a huge initiative within Miro to push for like community hub. So could you share with the audience a little bit about that and some like observations that you've been noticing?
Yeah, so at Miro, we call our offices hubs, and we have 12 of them. We are trying to embrace this hybrid model where during the week, people have the opportunity to come 2 to 3 days in the office and experience collaboration in person. And then the rest of the week, they're happy to work whatever suits their style. They can be at home, they can be in the office. It was an interesting decision for us because we frequently get asked about like, why do you think about in-person collaboration at all? We have seen that it's just missing. Like we don't sense the same level of collaboration if we don't have this opportunity to meet in person. And a lot of that is because the nature of work at Miro is very collaborative. So if you have any strategic initiative, there are multiple teams involved. And for them, it's very important to kind of think outside of silos and be together working, providing different perspectives and so on. And if you are in person, you'll find out that you can solve some things much easier and faster and just have a lot more engaging decision-making discussion and so on. So we try to embrace both, and this year, majority of our hubs got opened thanks to a better, hopefully staying for longer, better situation in terms of the COVID safety, of course. And with that, my team got to pivot with the programs as well, because we saw that online programs don't really address the need of the business anymore. So it limit the number of online programs that we run and focus a lot more on in-person, and also try to embrace these hybrid elements where it's possible. So since July, or maybe not even July. I think like since May, I think we started to focus a lot more on in-person programs. And I think in July, quite a few big offices opened in more like a full capacity in Europe. So in July, we've already seen many more people participating in person. And it brings a lot of different learnings for us, of course, because it's a very different thing to run a virtual event and an in-person event, especially when an in-person event with multiple hundred people feels very different when a webinar or a Zoom call with the same number of people. So it's been quite a ride.
Yeah, and Anya, I know we talked a little bit about how there's monthly events in some of these hubs, and recently you had a large offsite. So I think it'd be helpful to hear about like some examples of like in-person programs and how you all design that for the employee base. And like I know connecting employees is always top of mind for Miro as well.
Yeah. So how our team operates right now is that we release monthly schedule. So just recently we had the October release where we said like, hey, these are the events for the month, and we publish them through Epoch, and we also promote them internally through Slack. We use Slack heavily at Miro. So people would usually sign up for any number of events. And these events are usually around those common culture days in the hubs. So when we have majority of teams visiting the hub, we would have our in-person events there. And they can range from big office parties, like of course this month we have a Halloween party. We also have a Hispanic Heritage Month celebration and a Diwali celebration. So we collaborate closely with our employee resource groups on what types of celebrations we want to run this month. And between these big events, there are some smaller activities, smaller hub events and rituals. And usually it's the hub itself who gives ideas and who decides what kind of events they want to run. So they form a social committee and they work with the hub community manager and event coordinator to suggest ideas and to prepare it all together. And usually I've seen that it's either something around wellness, it's very popular, and people would like to have some yoga class or running session or cycling session or some discussion.
Like run together.
Yeah, like it can be a running club, or I believe this month there's a marathon happening in Amsterdam, and our Amsterdam office goes to cheer for those who participate. So it's not always like people participate in everything, but sometimes they come to support others. Cooking and crafting events were super popular. I think we will see a lot more of them in the upcoming quarter, just because the holiday season is approaching. They usually are very much popular around holiday season. Summer is more for outdoors events, so people would form some groups and either go for some excursion, some trip outdoors, or do a picnic outside, like where the weather is okay, and boat trips, of course, like our European offices love boat trips.
That sounds
fun. And not actually only European. I think Tokyo team is also very much they love the boat trips as well. So yeah, like they would come together and together with the hub community manager decide on the program for the next month. And then of course there are some company-wide events that are more like hard scheduled and they more driven by the business. We have quarterly all hands meetings that the internal communications team is running, and we support them in that. If there is a big customer event, we sometimes organize the hub watch parties. So we watch this customer event and have some drinks and food and discussion around that. And of course, we have some special events. And this year was very special for us because we organized Miro Fest. It was 2 days event where we brought everyone together, first time in 3 years. So it was run in 3 locations, in Austin, in Amsterdam, and in Yerevan, and each was from 300 to 700 people. So it was huge.
Wow.
Yeah, and all together we had the same agenda, the same sessions, and we had some sessions that were hybrid. So we would broadcast from one location to another, a session from a leader where like our founder would give a speech, our head of product would give a speech, and so on. And some sessions were facilitated locally by the local teams. And it was mainly around bringing the whole company together after this crazy time being at home and reuniting around our culture and values and vision and product, and also getting to know some new people who joined, especially new leaders who joined the company. So it was a lot of content, but also a lot of fun. Of course, we had parties as well in the evening, and a lot of small connection activities like small get-to-know games and collaborative fun activities between the sessions during the breaks. It was a massive thing, I should admit. Last time we did it together, it was 2019, and we were, I believe, like 200 people total. So it was a big change since then.
That's so crazy, Anya. And maybe shifting gears a bit too, because I know we talked a lot about all the different programs and initiatives you've been trying out, which I know for a lot of the audience members and our employee experience community, they often struggle with buy-in and understanding like what employees even want. And I know a lot of our initial discussion, Anya, was about like human-centric design and how that's applied in all the cultural and learning programs at Miro. So maybe could you share a little bit about like the methodology itself and how you've been applying it at Miro and why it works to get the stakeholder buy-in and understanding what employee wants?
Yeah, definitely. I think the key here is that human-centered design is about human, right? So try to be very empathetic and always start with the end user in mind. So human-centered design techniques, they usually originated from like product design, service design, learning design, those areas where you need to really understand your audience, really understand your end user to be able to provide relevant features. And what we've done, we basically learned some of those approaches, templates, frameworks, and we replicated them in our community design and culture design programs. And usually it has a very heavy discovery phase where we really dive deep into what are the needs. We do it in multiple ways. We, of course, analyze a lot of data from the feedback surveys, but also we run the embassy interviews, focus groups, co-creation sessions, these committees. So like a lot of different options for people to share their insights and ideas. And we try to kind of dig beyond the initial ask. So like if I ask you, Jade, what kind of event you would like to have next month? And you tell me like, oh, I want a party. Like, tell me more. Why party? What's so special for you in terms of party? How do you usually create connections with other people? What helps you feel comfortable in an event? So like we ask more kind of questions which help us to go beyond the initial idea and understand what's behind that idea. What's the motive? What's the working style behind that? In this way, we try to understand what are the different audiences in our hubs and how we can create a variety of events for this month to address all these different audiences, because they would resonate with different types of events. And another fun aspect of this approach, which we surprisingly discovered, is that when we use the same frameworks as our product engineering teams and product design teams, and then they know about it, they are much more eager to engage with us because we speak the same language, so to say. And then we come to them and say, hey, we've just finished our retrospective and we found these insights and we have a hypothesis. So our next feature for the event will be XYZ. They're like, oh, that sounds familiar. We do the same here with the product, right? Like we build a hypothesis, we research our user base, and we focus on the most impactful features. We even called some cultural aspects that people didn't like culture bugs. It's like, let's go and fix some culture bugs because fixing the bug in product development is a very much common thing. It's not so common to hear the same in people world or like culture world. So using the same language actually helped us to get more buy-in from those audiences which are naturally a bit more maybe quiet or don't really want to engage in conversations as much. let's say if we compare with like sales and marketing people, they're always happy to share some feedback, and they're very talkative, and they like to be open about their opinions. But it took a bit more time for us to kind of get into the minds of, let's say, product designers or product managers and engineers. I believe we who work in the tech world, we often face this, right? So using this approach helped us both ways. First, actually improving our process, but also kind of finding this common language with different audiences. And I would say that Miro leadership is generally very supportive of the overall strategy. So we never had an issue with like getting buy-in for the idea of like, yes, we need to run different activities and different events to support this sense of connection, because we know how it impacts our company strategy, mission, and so on. But where we probably struggled a bit more is when we talk to middle management and talk to the team leads, like people who actually have direct reports and they are so busy with something else because we've scaled so quickly. They're very busy and sometimes they don't have time for us. And this is where we actually, I guess, like we still have a lot to learn, like how to engage those busy people a bit more, because it's not like they don't want to participate in an event or they don't want to promote this event for their team. They just have so many other priorities on their plate. So finding more kind of keys to their hearts is one of the big things for us.
That's so awesome, Anya. And I guess like closing that off as well in terms of like interesting things that like you didn't expect when you're doing these interviews, or approaching it with this methodology. Like what did that look like? And also I'm curious if you're allowed to share like what were some culture bugs that like showed up?
Well, the most common culture bug, which I believe is very common for any company, is that when we say one thing and we act the opposite way. And it's like, oh, why do we say that we value X if we actually don't practice this in decision making or in resolving some important topic? So when this happens and naming it and saying like, this is probably a bug, or let's define it. Is it a bug or a feature? Maybe we need to stop saying that we are X and like we actually kind of legitimize this other behavior and be very transparent. Like, yes, we maybe don't always optimize for something like we need to ship something super fast. Like we need to move fast. And of course, if you move fast, maybe you don't focus on some aspects of quality, you fix them later. Fix those aspects once you ship the first version. So like we can't say like, yes, let's be focused on the highest quality right here, right now, because our idea is that we first try the minimum version and then we iterate and we optimize it and we develop it further. So I think it was very clear for us, like once we understood it, okay, let's be honest with ourselves. And another thing is using this approach doesn't replace efficient processes. Like you can't apply design methodologies to management of the overall like event experience. So it's very important to understand that we still need to have a very quality event production. We need to make the communications very clear and engaging. We want to be within the budget. We want to have a nice logistics and food and beverage and everything. So like all these events elements, they're still there. But what the design methodologies help us to do is first to activate co-creators. So when we involve people on every step of the process with these interviews, empathy, conversations, and so on, they see like, oh, I actually can impact it and I can contribute my time and my skills, or I'm curious and I feel like I'm co-owner of this activity. So we become less of like service providers, like we don't say like, we are the people team, here are the service, this event, this program, please choose whatever you want and give us your feedback. No, we become like partners in this process. And this is why we call our programs community programs, because events, they never run by the company to employees, like by people team to the hub members. That's not really how it works. It's always a shared effort, a community effort. That's why it's very important. And it's part of our culture, actually, collaborative culture. So it's maybe not suitable for every single company, but because we are so much focused on collaboration and constant iteration on like improvements, I think we found this approach really worked well for us.
That's awesome, Anya. And I know we're hitting time soon. This conversation flew by. So with that, everyone, if you have questions for Anya, feel free to drop it in the chat as me and Anya wrap up with a few last questions. But with that said, Anya, I guess like for you, like given like the shifting priorities and you all really focusing in on community, is there any like parting words that you want to leave with the audience, or like final learnings and observations you've had that you thought would be interesting to share with everyone, or just challenges that you want to put out there and see if anyone else has any tips?
Yeah, I think it's both one of the learnings and challenges, and also one thing that I'm very passionate about is how do we measure success? I think this is one thing that we always get asked by the business, and this is where we actually can leverage this conversation in terms of getting the buy-in and so on. But this is the hardest thing for us to learn, and we iterated so much on this. So for us, it was very important to be very picky about what kind of questions we put in the feedback surveys, what kind of questions we ask on these empathy interviews, what kind of signal we're trying to get from our participants. Because in the end of the day, the thing that we measure becomes our focus, and the thing that we are focused on becomes the assumption for our design. So whenever we design a new event, a new program, we have this metric in mind that we are focused on. So it's very important that this metric is relevant one. And for us, in the past year, there are 3 core metrics that we always discuss and always trying to improve. One of them is obviously satisfaction with the event. We always ask, do you feel like this event was great, and did you like this event? I think everyone asks that. But beyond that,
do you use like a scale, Anya, like 1 to 5, or like a yes and no?
We use the agreement scales, and we found that it works best for us when we ask the I am satisfied with this event, and then from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And for some of the events, for majority of them, actually we remove the neutral answer, because we want people to give us something more nitty-gritty than neutral. Okay, it's like, okay, if you really need to say yes or no, how strongly you feel about yes or no, it drives a lot more signal. And then another 2 things that we were focused on so far, one is sense of connection, because the things that we're trying to build with these programs are rooted in the ability to connect with others, build relationships, and work, kind of shape the work beyond transactional relationships, kind of be a bit more engaged and passionate about everything that you do. And ability to connect with others, especially outside of your primary team, was a key focus for us. So we would always ask, through this event, I feel like I connected with other members of my hub or with people outside of my team. And at some point, we even asked how many connections you were able to create, like how many new people you were able to meet. It was very important the first few months after the pandemic, because people really met every time they met new people. It was very important for us to track that. And if an event doesn't generate new connections and people responded, yeah, there were many new people, new faces, but I didn't really have a chance to talk to them because the event was not designed for talking. It was like, oh, this is a good insight. We don't need this kind of events. We need to have more events where people actually have enough time to interact with each other and to learn about each other. And then the last piece that we were focused on measuring was co-creation, sense of co-creation. I feel like I can co-create this experience together with others. It's the most tricky one, because we found that, at least in our world, it doesn't correlate 100% with satisfaction and with connection. Some people prefer not to co-create and just be participants and just be there, but they're fine with whatever others prepared for them, and that's okay. So we're still exploring this co-creation metric quite a lot, but it's an important part of our strategy that we would never do things in isolation without asking people what they really want. So it was an important thing.
That's amazing, Anya. And yes, I know we worked extensively with you on like metrics and reporting, and our team, I know, is eternally grateful for you, like providing guidance on how reporting for employee experience can be, to your point, more like actionable. But with that said, we are hitting time. And I guess with that, I'll quickly share my screen to wrap us up. And also, if anyone has any questions for Anya, you can always feel free to drop it in the chat and we can connect with you afterwards. Or we can always connect you with Anya. But with that said, Anya, where can people connect with you? Or is there any final recommendations you would have for the audience today?
I think actually the best way to connect with me is over email. So I think if Chet, you can share my email with everyone who participated, and I'm happy to answer any questions or suggest something that we found working. I'm also curious to learn. I know that the thing that we've tried, this is just a small piece of what's out there. So it's really interesting to see what others tried and what things worked and what things didn't. Especially when they now try to be a bit more smart and kind of say like, okay, if we need to keep one global program across all offices, regardless of the size and location, what this program could be, or like, what if you tailor programs to a certain location, what's so specific to that location, what other companies in that location are doing. So yeah, I'm happy to connect over email and continue this chat.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Anya, for hanging out with us today. And again, for everyone here, we'll share with you Anya's email and LinkedIn if you all want to connect with Anya on LinkedIn as well. But again, we're Epoch. Super excited to continue hosting these webinars. And if you all ever have any questions about our conversation today or anything at all about employee experience, always feel free to email me, jade@epochapp.com. And you know where to find us. But Anya, thank you so much for today's conversation. It was really awesome.
Thank you.